What's up guys, Irish Tail here, and in today's video I want to talk about the big changes coming in the reinforcement patch on Thursday. So I just want to quickly point out, all the information in this video comes straight from the Rainbow Six Siege Twitch stream. So essentially all this information is from essentially straight from the horse's mouth, so you can trust pretty much all I'm saying here. So first of all, let's take a look at the operator buffs and nerfs. So first of all, there's the big one, and that is Tachanka. He is finally getting a buff, making him a somewhat more viable operator. Now, I don't mean he's going to be a must pick, but he's definitely more viable than he has ever been before. Tachanka is essentially receiving a shield buff, basically giving him a shield similar to that of Montaña's with 500 health that covers his head and torso when his LMG is deployed. Essentially, the idea of this is to allow him a bit more survivability when holding down an angle. Hopefully, this is going to help those of you who love to play him get a bit more use out of his ability now. Obviously, he'll still have to watch out for things like grenades, capital crossbows, but essentially the point was that the devs made is that now if somebody peeks around an angle, as Tachanka, you can hold that corner a lot easier now, and the person peeking you might actually end up losing the fight because you've got that shield in front of your face. The next operator receiving a buff is Fuse. Now, essentially, his buff is that he's getting one extra fuse charge to deploy, which, in my opinion, is a good general overall buff. As I'm going to be honest, I do find myself running out of charges pretty quickly when I play him. Another thing that they changed to the fuse charges themselves is the damage radius. Essentially, they've been increased from a 2.5 radius to a 4.2 meter radius, with the aim to make it when a fuse charge is deployed on a room, it actually sends people running out of the room to avoid the damage. They did also say to compensate for the increased radius, the lethal damage has been reduced, essentially meaning these charges aren't going to be able to kill you instantly off like the first explosion. Basically meaning the damage fall off is kind of increased quite a lot. So if you're towards the edges of that 4.2 meter radius as well, you're not going to receive as much damage if you're unless you're in towards the middle of it. Obviously, you can still get injured by them, and they can put you on low health, but you're less likely to die instantly to one of those charges. Also, the Ubisoft devs did say if you play them on hostage rounds, expect to see more hostage deaths if you put the charge on the hostage room. Because of that increased radius, you're going to hit that hostage. So that should be fun to see as more people essentially start killing hostages because of stupid picks. The next operator receiving a buff is Glaz. He's receiving a buff to his recoil and fire rate. Essentially, the idea is they want him to be able to fire faster and more accurately to put him kind of in line as being like this sniper who can sort of support from a distance very accurately and precisely. Now, personally, I don't think he needs a fire rate increase. I think his fire rate was perfectly fine. But hey-ho, you never know. I could be wrong. That could be something everyone wants. But personally, I just think a recoil buff would have been enough. He is also receiving an extra mag as well. I do kind of agree with this one. I did find myself running out of ammo quite quickly as Glaz, so it's nice to see we've got a bit more sort of bang for your buck with him to open up a little bit more sightlines. Obviously, this is going to make him a little bit more of an often picked operator, especially for maps with long sightlines. It brings him a little bit more into like playability now. He's not going to be a must pick he's not going to be a must pick. Let's just be honest with that straight away. But he's got a bit more use now. And the final attacking buff is great news for those of you who like playing shield operators. Essentially now, if you're face on with a C4 or impact grenade, you won't take as much damage and you won't be killed instantly. Essentially, if you're Montaña at full deployment, the damage of C4 or impact grenades to your front is going to be pretty much negligible, if anything at all. And if you're one of the other shield operators, I assume, although it wasn't specified, you'll take damage, just not as much as we currently do, to instantly kill you. Obviously, if the nitro or impact grenade is thrown behind you, then you will take the full standard amount of damage that it would deal out. So you can't just tank out damage from anywhere, it has to be in front of you. But as I say, as a whole, it's good news to those of you who love to play shield operators. You've now got a bit more viability. Obviously, you can hold choke points, windows, doors a little bit more easily without having to worry about, does this enemy have a nitro cell? Are they going to be easily taking me out? So it's a nice little change. Now, let's move on to the defending operator buffs. Firstly, Smoke has received a buff to his beauties. Essentially now his smoke devices are deployed in the same way as grenades instead of C4 as they used to be. Essentially this allows him to throw them faster and further, essentially making his device more viable for on-the-fly deployment. The idea is it means you don't have to be close to a door, window, choke point, etc. to get your device in place and where you can deploy it and it's going to be useful. It basically means he's got a bit more versatility on his roaming ability. You don't have to run up straight towards an enemy to get your device in place. It basically increases his ability to play very well and, work as a good operator. So that's nice to see. It means he's going to get a bit more use and a bit more range on his actual ability, as few people tend to use them correctly anyway. So it'll be a nice meta change. And the next defending operator getting a buff is Bandit. He has now been given one more battery to use. Essentially, this was a direct response to Hibana being added into the game. The idea from the Ubisoft devs is because the attackers can now breach more areas, the defenders in counter to that can now defend more areas. Canadian, the captain of Season 3's PC ESL tournament, pointed out that this should be a good addition. It's not going to be too overpowered, as it means obviously now you can mute and bandit juggle reinforced walls a bit more safely. It also means that Thatcher and Twitch have a bit more work cut out for them now on how and when they deploy their gadgets. Now, another YouTuber who I happened to briefly glance on did say it makes Thatcher more of a must-pick, but quite frankly, I already think he was before this patch, and I don't see that being a relevant statement to make. Thatcher has always been a must-pick when it comes to dealing with a bandit and a mute, and obviously with the introduction of Hibana having more ability to breach walls, Thatcher's been a must-pick for quite a while now, so if any of you feel like making that comment, please don't. He's always been fairly useful. I don't see the point in saying he's any more useful, because he already was. But that aside, essentially it means Bandit now has a little bit more ability to defend an objective. He can bandit juggle reinforced walls a bit more easily. And essentially it means a mute and a bandit combo on defense could, if played correctly and played well, will essentially be unbreakable if they do their jobs correctly, meaning the attackers won't be able to breach reinforced walls, which is a pretty awesome change. There have also been buffs to the recoil of several SMGs, these being Frost's 9mm, the UMP for Castle and Pulse, the FMG9 that belongs to Smoke, and Caviera's M12. Essentially the idea from the developers is because these weapons deal out less damage, their recoil has been reduced to balance this trade-off, essentially meaning because you don't do as much damage, you can put more rounds downrange accurately to compensate for this fall-off. Now let's talk about nerfs. So I'm sorry to say for all of you Blackbeard fans out there is a big nerf to his character. His shield is having its health dropped from 150 hit points to now having 60 hit points. Essentially this means it can now only take around 1 to 2 bullets before breaking. They've also said that his ADS time has also been increased, meaning it takes longer for him to aim and he can now take fewer shots to down. Essentially this is bad news bears for all you Blackbeard fans. He's now becoming less of the window tank he was. You're no longer going to be able to hold the window for long periods of time. Essentially his health and his shield has been dropped by more than half. So it means he's going to be easier to deal with on the defending side, but it means he's going to be less of an ability to tank out and peek windows. Yes, he can still do brief peeks, but you've no longer got those extended periods of time where he's going to be looking out through a window. They've also said that there is going to be a lighting fix. It wasn't completely detailed, but essentially the dev team told us essentially what's going to be happening is the defending operators or anyone looking outside when they're inside on lighter maps is going to struggle to be able to see outside. Essentially the idea is this is going to stop spawn peeking, stop people killing you. So it's a nice little change. It means that sort of thing is going to be reduced. They've also confirmed that Twitch will be getting her drone's crosshair back in the prep phase. Supposedly that disappearing was just an accident. It wasn't an intentional thing. So thankfully they are addressing that and bringing back the crosshair. Meaning, you no longer got to try and guess where you're shooting. As I noticed it was very inaccurate without that crosshair. They also told us they're going to be fixing rubber banding. Essentially, there's been a big problem recently with people jumping out of windows and bouncing straight back, or going through a door and bouncing straight back. Essentially, we've been told that obviously is a netcode, or not a netcode, a server-side issue. Hopefully that's going to be fixed this patch, as, That's something that needs to be fixed quite badly. And of course, we'll be seeing the new free map Bartlett University, which obviously you've been seeing gameplay for in the background of this video. That's pretty awesome. It means obviously we've got a new free map to try out. There'll be a how-to video coming for that very soon, hopefully on the Thursday or the Friday. So that should be something worth sticking around for. But that pretty much sums up all the information that was confirmed for the new patch. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, feel free to let me know your thoughts on the buffs and the nerfs. God, my brain is not working. Obviously, like the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more Siege content. Also, there is a link in the description below to my speculation video on things that weren't confirmed to be coming in the reinforcement patch. So you can check that out if you want to. And I'll see you in the next one.